Hello and welcome to studyknits. Hi everyone, welcome back to studyknits. My name is Allie. I'm a fourth year medical student living in the US and I absolutely love knitting. Today's gonna be fun. I've been thinking about this for a little bit and finally decided to do it. I, like a lot of people, absolutely love the show Only Murders in the Building on Hulu. If you don't know about this show, it's a phenomenal show with Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez, the trio that no one knew that we needed. They all lived in this fancy building in New York City and they start a podcast to investigate these murders that just keep happening in their building. It's really, really fun. It's set mostly in winter and fall in New York City. I absolutely love this whole series. It's one of my fall comfort TV shows to watch. The first season released during my first year of medical school, which was just a really challenging year for me in terms of academics, adjusting to a new life as a medical student. So this new show came out that everyone was talking about, and I remember watching it, and it was so comforting. It's comedic, but also has some creepy murder stuff, which I love, and I absolutely love this show. And the knitwear is peak. From the first time I watched this, the knitwear has always captivated me. So I thought it would be fun to do a little knitwear review of all of the knittable items in Only Murders in the Building. The fourth season is currently being released on Hulu, and I was going to do one video with all of the knitwear in all four of the seasons. And I started going through season one, and there was enough in season one to be a whole episode. I have no idea how long this is going to take, so we'll see. This video, I have put more work into this video already than any other video I've ever made combined. I spent hours combing through Ravelry trying to find look-alike patterns for these knitted items in Only Murders in the Building season one. Some of them got pretty close. Some of them require heavy modifications. I had so much fun preparing this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I enjoyed making it. Join me along for this ride as we review all of the knitwear from season one of Only Murders in the Building. There will be spoilers for at least season one in this episode. Also, if you have a better idea of a pattern that fits the knitted item from Only Murders in the Building, or if I missed a sweater or anything, please let me know in the comments. As always, all of the pattern information and links to the Ravelry page will be in the description below. And I've also made a Ravelry bundle with all of these patterns. I figured out how to do that. Without further ado, let's hop in. We're just going to start from episode one. We are going to start with one of the most, if not the most iconic looks in the whole show, and that is Mabel Mora's intro outfit when we're learning about her. She looks like such a badass. She has this like gold fur coat on. She has this gorgeous yellow outfit going, packed with knitwear. Iconic red beads, right? So the first thing, you can't really see the sweater that she's wearing in the intro, but you can see her hat. It looks like some kind of ribbed folded brim beanie, which reminded me a lot of the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. Comes in baby, kid sizes, and then the 3 adult sizes. It's a DK weight yarn, and it is a fully 1x1 ribbed hat. It looks almost identical to the one that Mabel is wearing in her intro scene. I absolutely love this scene. This is the first time we meet Mabel, and I feel like this really sets us up for her personality like so well. She sets herself up as this fashion and knitwear icon that is badass. Incredible, no notes. Then later on in the episode, we get a better look at the sweater that she's wearing when the power goes out in the building and they all meet up really for the first time and discover their love of podcasts together. You can like look at this picture, and if you are obsessed with Only Murders in the Building like me, you can almost hear her saying, "What's in Beau's mouth?" This sweater, I found a couple of sweaters that kind of reminded me of this, so I'll go through them. This looks like some kind of either like ribbed or brioche or fisherman rib raglan sweater with some cool shaping. Also the same gorgeous yellow color as her hat. I imagine it's the same yarn. The first one that I found that really reminded me of this was the Seasons sweater by Ozetta. This is a worsted weight pattern worked in half fisherman's rib. Let's look, it's a bit of a bigger gauge, a thicker fiber than what Mabel's sweater is knit with, but it's a pretty mainstream pattern, a lot of projects on Ravelry. It's got the same raglan shape as Mabel's, a little bit less of the cool shaping, but I absolutely love this pattern. It looks a lot like the one Mabel's wearing. However, I found this first, and then when going back through Ravelry and doing a second deep dive into all of the sweaters, I found this pattern. This is literally called Mabel's Sweater. It's a pattern by Joji Locatelli, and you can see in the pattern photos, it's the same beautiful yellow color as Mabel's sweater. This was literally inspired by Mabel's first sweater, and it is absolutely gorgeous. This uses a fingering weight yarn, a little bit more similar to what I feel like Mabel's actually wearing. And it's in waffle stitch, which I've never worked anything in waffle stitch before, so I would be very interested to make this. It's got the raglan, got the cool shaping, and the pattern photos have the gorgeous yellow color. This also has a lot of projects on Ravelry. I'm not surprised when you search Only Murders in the Building on Ravelry. This is one of the first things that comes up. I feel it's a bit more fitted, a bit less positive ease than the Seasons sweater by Ozetta. Moving on, we have in the next episode, we're now in episode 2, Mabel is sitting there, she's drawing Tim Kono, she's sketching, and she's wearing this six sweater. It looks like this variegated boucle yarn mixed in with some mohair brushed alpaca stripes. It's this really, really sick sweater. In season 1, we only get this glimpse of it. We really only see the top half of it, but it comes back in season 2. She wears it a couple of times. It's in a painting. Like, it's really, and I didn't even notice it until I was watching season 2, and I was like, wait, I know that sweater from season 1. Absolutely insane. This, from what I can see in the season 1, it looks like drop shoulder, some stripes, reminds me of a scrappy yarn project. Excitingly enough, there is a sweater pattern on Ravelry that has been designed and inspired by this. It's literally called the Only Murders Oversized Sweater. This is a pattern by Sophia He. It is perfect. It's the exact same. It's a super bulky and a sport yarn held together, which makes a super bulky yarn. So this is a thick sweater. This is a sweater. It is a drop shoulder. It is seamed. Unfortunately, there are only 2 sizes. There is a small and a medium. There's also not much information on Ravelry about the fit, about the ease, about what bust sizes are included, but it is exactly the same. I was able to find some other patterns with more inclusive sizing, more information about the sizing, so I'll also go over those too. They're not exactly like the one Mabel's wearing, but you get the idea, and I think you could modify them, so we'll talk about them. The first one that I found is the No Limits sweater by Lyric Bagger. This is designed to be a scrappy yarn project. It's really cool. You can see there's little like bits sticking out. Like, I think it's intended that you don't necessarily weave in your ends. So I thought you could kind of get the same idea by making it a scrappy project and then working a couple of rows in whatever yarns you're using, and then having a neutral or variegated brushed alpaca yarn that you then hold and work a stripe with. Because if you look at Mabel's original sweater, the gauge isn't necessarily the same between the two. There's a big difference in texture, size, the feel of the yarn within the stripes. It looks like, again, I'm just imagining. So I feel like you could achieve that with this sweater by holding a brushed alpaca for stripes every couple of rows. This is a pretty big bulky turtleneck too, so you could either work the turtleneck or, to make it more like Mabel's, just work a folded collar at the end. The other one that kind of reminded me is the Ummer sweater by Kadri. This is knit specifically with We Are Knitters The Wave, which is a yarn that I was really, really obsessed with when I first started knitting. I've never actually bought it or worked with it, which is funny. I just kind of idolized it for a year or so. Not quite a boucle yarn, but definitely you get the variegation, you get the color variegation too. Same thing, to get the striped effect, you could hold a strand of mohair or brushed alpaca and work it in even stripes. I feel like this fit is a little bit more similar to the one that Mabel is wearing, aside from the fact that it is raglan instead of a drop shoulder. I'm willing to overlook that. Moving on, finally, someone besides Mabel is wearing some knitwear. Although Mabel's knitwear always slaps, let's be real. The next one, this is Charles's sweater. Charles Hayden Savage, Brazos. Steve Martin's character, Charles Hayden Savage, aka Brazos, wears a lot of knitwear, but it's really, really fine knitwear in the sense that it looks very like, it looks more like a fabric instead of knitwear, if that makes sense, if you know what I'm saying. Very like difficult to replicate for a human with knitting needles. So I've included some of his here that look like they would be fun or easy to replicate in a sweater form. There was simply no way I was ever going to be able to find a sweater pattern that was in this tiny little gauge. One, hard to find. Two, let's be real, I'm not gonna make something with a tiny little gauge like that. I don't think you are either. So suspend your disbelief, and we're just gonna bump up the gauge for a lot of his patterns. All right, that being said, when they are starting to record their first podcast episode, he and Martin Short are recording the podcast in the closet. He's wearing this gorgeous fisherman's sweater. How could I not think about the Moby Sweater by Petite Knit? I love this pattern. Gorgeous pattern, a pretty classic cabled sweater, obviously a lot bigger gauge than the one that Charles is wearing, but this is a DK weight. The cable's on the side, the little like lattice looking thing in the front. I don't know the term for that, I'm so sorry. I've been wanting to make this pattern for a while. I feel like Charles would wear this sweater if you made it for him. Looks pretty similar to the one that he's wearing, just a lot thicker. His looks pretty thin, this one's pretty thick, but other than that, it's pretty similar. Moving on later, we see Mabel in a flashback when we're like learning about her past relationship with Tim, that they were actually friends. We see her confronting him right before the season starts, basically, and she's wearing this really, really cool sweater, and this is the only time that we see this sweater. It's on screen for maybe like 5-10 seconds. We don't see much of it, but it was so cool that I wanted to include it. Okay, so it's a turtleneck that is drop shoulder, but it looks like there's this like cap sleeve detail that looks like a cuff or a cap or something. Really, really cool. Honestly, there's nothing on Ravelry like this. So if you're a knitwear designer and you want to make something like this, I couldn't find anything like it. Yeah, it was also kind of hard I didn't even know what to search to find it. But there's a decent amount of patterns out there with like ruffles along the sleeves, a lot of ruffle patterns, a lot of things with a similar idea, a lot of things with a similar kind of vibe, where you add a ruffle to the front, like the whole Souffle collection by Laura Penrose. A lot of like shoulder ruffles, but this isn't a ruffle. It's like a extra like a collar for the sleeves. Anyways, so again, the closest thing I can find, this first sweater has, you'll see, has a similar vibe. This is the Pivoine sweater by Trico Design MCL. I think Pivoine means peony in French. This kind of has that ruffle detail. It's not quite on the sleeve, but it's on the shoulder. It's kind of a similar vibe. It does have this gorgeous lacework in the front, which Mabel's does not have, but this was the closest thing I could find. It's a DK weight sweater. It's a little thinner than hers, but It has the similar vibe of the fun sleeve detail. If you're going for the fun sleeve detail and you're more of a ruffle person, this could be for you. I am not really a ruffle person. I wouldn't say Mabel's a ruffle person either. So I found a sweater that has a similar structure to what I believe she's wearing, what it looks like she's wearing, and that is the Town Sweater by Ozetta. Wonderful, wonderful sweater. This is a worsted weight sweater. It's drop shoulder, kind of a mock neck, turtleneck, more like what she's wearing, a thicker gauge. And I thought, hear me out, I felt like basically what you could do, you pick up stitches for the sleeves, you work the sleeves, and then you go back in after. You either, kind of similar to how you would work a pocket on a cardigan, you either pick up stitches and then work, or you work the pocket and then you sew it back on. So I'm thinking you either work a little strip of yarn, sew it onto the sleeve, or you just pick up stitches and work the extra little sleeve detail. Looks like from the tiny little snippets I can see, it looks like it might be double knitted. But again, this would be a really, really interesting thing. I think it'd be really interesting to try. I don't know that I would ever try it. I don't know that I would ever wear it. I would be so interested if someone is trying to do this, if someone has a different pattern that I couldn't find that's similar to this. Because I think it was a really cool concept. It's just a really cool looking sweater. And like I said, it's only on screen for a couple of seconds. That's why the screenshots I found of it are like not great, because it's really not ever on there for that much time. But it's so sick. Had to include it. Had to talk about it. All right, we're now in episode 3, and this is the first time we see the murder board. And this screenshot is the screenshot that they use for a lot of the ads for it. It's an iconic picture of them, and Mabel is wearing this iconic red sweater. Iconic. You cannot convince me. You cannot convince me that this is not the Cove Sweater by the Knit Pearl Girl. It looks exactly the same. It literally looks exactly the same. And it's not just because the pattern photo, the first pattern photo, is of a red sweater. This is literally the exact same sweater. Exact same sweater. This is, it's a DK and a lace held together, making a worsted weight. Drop shoulder, 2x2 rib. It's literally the exact same pattern. This is literally the Cove Sweater. A very classic, like, mock neck, 2x2 rib sweater. A classic, a staple. This, Mabel is wearing the Cove Sweater. She knit it or somebody else knit it for her. You cannot convince me otherwise. In this same episode, you can see in the same picture, in the same image, Charles is wearing a quarter zip, but later on in the episode, we get a closer look at Charles's quarter zip, and we see that it has this fun waffle texture. So there's obviously the zipper sweater by Petite Knit is a popular pattern. It's a quarter zip, a thicker gauge. I'm not sure what yarn is used, but I was looking into textured quarter zip patterns, and there's a couple of really cool textured quarter zip patterns out there. The first one I found, it's actually not a quarter zip, it's just a zip up, but it would be difficult to modify it into a quarter zip. But if you're motivated, you could do it. So the first one is called the Girton men's jacket by the Westrand sisters. There's a lot of projects on Ravelry, and great news, this is a free pattern. I'm not sure what exactly the stitch is. It looks like either a broken rib or a fisherman's rib. It doesn't say in the Ravelry description. This is a worsted weight pattern, so again, a little thicker, but a really cool textured zip-up sweater that I feel like you could modify into a quarter zip if you had the motivation to do so. There's another pattern that I found. It's called Learn to Knit a Men's Sweater by Stacey Perry. Again, a lot of patterns. This is more of like, I wouldn't even call it a rib, but it's a stripy looking pattern, like a vertical stripy looking pattern. Looks like you work a couple of knit stitches and then purl, and then you do a couple of knit stitches and purl. Again, a really cool textured quarter zip. If you're out there looking for a cool quarter zip to be more like Brazos, but you don't want the classic stockinette petite knit zipper sweater. Charles wears a ton of quarter zips. He wears a lot of quarter zips. I think this is the only one that I talked about, because the rest of them are just classic quarter zips. But moving on, our icon, the star of the show, Jan and her bassoon. In the scene where she and Charles, she's playing the bassoon with her window open, and Charles is playing his accordion, and they're playing to each other from across the courtyard. She's wearing this like sexy off the shoulder sweater that looks so cool. She's really crazy. Say what you will about Jan, she had pretty good style. She's pretty crazy, but she had great style. It's this really cool, like, off the shoulder, rolled sweater, and it looks like it's a brushed alpaca. I saw it and I knew exactly who would have a pattern for this. I saw it and I was like, I know that Knititude has a pattern for this. And I was right, she does. This is the cold shoulder pullover by Knititude, also known as Chantal Miyagishima. This is pretty similar to what Jan's wearing, aside from the fact that Jan's little folded off the shoulder thing is not ribbed and Knititude's is ribbed. I feel like you could just fix that by working stockinette instead of working rib. Anyways, this is an Aran weight pattern. I don't even know if it's raglan or drop shoulder. I don't know. I don't know that I would personally ever make or wear this, but it looks pretty similar to what Jan is wearing. It's pretty iconic. It's a pretty iconic looking sweater. This seems like something that you would knit and wear and no one would know that you actually knit it. Like this just for like a non-knitter or non-crafter, this seems like something that doesn't seem possible to knit. It's so cool looking though. You could definitely make this pattern with like a brushed alpaca or a couple of strands of mohair held together and get the same look as Jan. Overall, iconic, super cool. Now moving on. The rest of episode 4 and then episodes 5 and 6 all take place over the course of one day. It's a pretty crazy day. I didn't realize it when I was watching it until I was going through trying to piece out all the sweaters, and I was like, they're all wearing the exact same sweaters for these 3 episodes. So when our 3 main characters go to deliver Sting a turkey, we get some sweater action. We get to see Oliver's first piece of knitwear. He's not a big knitwear guy. He wears a lot of button-downs and silk scarves and blazers and waistcoats, which I love, but he doesn't have a ton of knitwear in his wardrobe, it looks like. So we'll start with Oliver, because I had a hard time finding a sweater for this, but I finally found something. It took a while. So he's wearing what looks like this drop shoulder turtleneck with either a brioche or just a bulky rib for the turtleneck part that also continues onto the yoke. It's really cool. It's really dramatic. And to top it all off, he's using this cool either variegated yarn or he's got 2 yarns held together. It's a really cool looking sweater. I found the Cloisterport by Susie Howman. It's very similar to what Oliver is wearing, with the exception that I feel like Oliver's definitely wearing at least an Aran weight sweater, probably a bulky weight sweater. This is a fingering weight sweater. It's a sport and fingering held together, which makes a fingering, but doesn't make any sense. This pattern is the closest thing I could find to what Oliver is wearing. It's got the drop shoulder, it's got the ribbing that carries onto the yoke. It's really exactly what he's wearing, with the exception it's a little too thin. The problem is that it is only available in Danish, and it's only available in a Danish knitting book, which is not very useful for me who does not speak any Danish. That being said, there are a ton of bulky weight ribbed turtlenecks out there. I couldn't find any that had like a brioche turtleneck, which I feel like is sort of what he's wearing. It looks like he's wearing kind of a brioche. I couldn't find any bulkier Aran with a brioche. I did find the Cecil sweater by Marika Knit. It looks pretty similar. I feel like you could just, instead of having the really tall turtleneck, you could just roll it over, and then you would have to talk amongst yourselves and figure out how to continue the ribbing down the yoke in terms of increases and things like that. But overall, I feel this is pretty similar to what he's wearing. It's oversized, it's a little bulky. This isn't super bulky. What is it? It's a worsted and a lace held together to make an Aran. You could hold 2 different colored yarns together, get the same kind of marbled look as what Oliver's wearing, and then just adjust to have the fun ribbed yoke. This is another sweater pattern that I feel like if you're a knitwear designer, you could design this, because I couldn't really find anything out there that had this vibe. There were a lot of sweaters that have like ribbing from the neck that continues in a V, but none that was just a square that kind of cuts off here. Either way, think on it. If you're looking for some inspiration, that is one. There's some inspiration for you. In the same scene, Mabel is wearing a turtleneck. Well, she wears a turtleneck for the whole couple of episodes. A really cool black ribbed turtleneck. This is another one that I feel like is probably more, looks like something that is manufactured and not knit. That being said, I liked it. I liked the look, and I felt like there was something out there that was similar. I was right. I found sweater number 13 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This is a DK weight pattern. It's a bit more oversized, a bit more positive ease than what I feel like Mabel is wearing, but I feel like it does capture the turtleneck, it captures the cool shaping, and it captures the textured look, because this is an all over textured turtleneck, which is really cool. Yeah, this is an all over broken rib turtleneck. It looks really cool. This is definitely something that I feel like I would consider making and wearing. I absolutely love the raglan shaping. I think Mabel is wearing a drop shoulder, but this raglan shaping is really cool. I feel like this best captured the vibe of what Mabel was wearing, especially because I think she's wearing a manufactured and not a knitted item. Pretty similar. And then they wear the same clothes for the entire rest of the next 2 episodes. Crazy. That's when they go to that's when we finally meet Oscar, and they go to Long Island. There's a whole episode about Long Island, and then they go to Mabel's mom's house, and then they all come back to the city, and they think they're going to stop the podcast because it's too damaging for Mabel, and then Teddy offers them money to keep the podcast going, and Mabel's like, I need to find out what happened to Tim, and so then they keep it going. And then we get to episode 7, which is all about Theo. Such a cool episode. One of my favorite episodes. Theo, throughout the episode, wears this sick sweater. Really sick sweater. Another sweater that I could kind of capture the essence, but couldn't find anything exactly like it. He's wearing this really cool cabled sweater, but it's a drop shoulder with a cool cable design that only is in the top half of the yoke. Or does it continue on? It's either on the top half of the yoke or just on the front panel. Either way, really, really cool cabled pattern. I am not sure what this type of cable that he's wearing is called. I'm not a big cable person in the sense that I physically know how to do cables, but I don't really know anything about them. So really, really cool cabled pattern. So the closest thing I could find, and I feel like it's pretty similar, is the Oster Pullover by Michelle Wang. This is a Brooklyn tweed pattern as well. It kind of looks like a drop shoulder. It's kind of masquerading. It could pass as a drop shoulder, but it's just not a drop shoulder. The cables are pretty similar to what Theo's wearing. It's really cool with just the front panel being cabled. I feel like you could stop the cables halfway through and just have the cables be only on the front, like the upper half, but I feel like it really captures the vibe of what he's wearing. It's not exact. So again, if you're looking for some inspiration to design a knitwear pattern, you could design Theo's sweater. It's a worsted weight pattern. Really, really cool cables. Again, I'm not sure what they're called. I mean, Brooklyn tweed patterns I feel like they're crazy. I always learn new things when I make a Brooklyn tweed pattern. I always learn like a new technique, a new stitch, a new way to increase or decrease. They're just really cool. They're really cool patterns. I feel like they're thorough, and their support is great because I've struggled with their patterns before. So overall, this looks pretty similar to what Theo is wearing, and I'm a big fan of it. I would consider making this. Overall, it looks boxy, great, fits in very well with the Only Murders knitwear universe. Moving on. Another sweater from Mabel. Another incredible sweater from Mabel. This is in episode 8 when they're filming what they think is their final episode. When they're filming it, they think they nailed down the Demuses. They're like, we got them. Mabel's wearing this throughout that whole episode. It is, from a distance, it just looks like a regular old turtleneck, but if you zoom in, you can see it's textured and it looks like it is like moss stitch. It's probably manufactured and not knit. I saw it and I was like, that is the Popo sweater by Eggio Knits. This is an entire sweater in what she calls double purl or moss stitch. I feel like moss stitch and pearl stitch have different meanings to different people. So I'm not even going to attempt to describe it. But it's this cool all over textured turtleneck pattern that looks pretty similar to what Mabel's wearing. This is knit with, it's a DK and a lace held together, making a total of like a DK yarn. So it has the fuzziness of a mohair. Mabel's wearing a drop shoulder sweater in the show, but this is a raglan sweater. You could adjust it, whatever, if you wanted to, if you felt so strongly enough about it. But overall, I mean, I think this is a gorgeous pattern in general, and it very much fits the vibe of what Mabel's wearing. And I absolutely love this pattern. There's a cardigan version as well that's really cute too. It's just been sitting in my favorites for a bit. No plans to do anything about it. Episode 9, another great sweater from Jan. She is in her recovery era after, big spoiler, after she stabs herself to throw suspicion away. Pretty baller move, really worked. Although I feel like if you're ever in any kind of dramatic whodunit kind of thing, if someone gets injured, only mildly, if they're injured and in a coma or injured and bedridden, doesn't count. Injured and still able to carry on with life and not the main character, they probably did it. I don't know. I feel like I've noticed that. They use that a lot to throw suspicion off. And it worked for me watching this. I was so surprised when it was Jan. Anyways, she's wearing this bulky, way oversized, so much positive ease sweater that looks like so comfy. Definitely great for recovering after you stabbed yourself. From a distance, when you're looking at the picture, it just looks like a regular stockinette. If you zoom in, it's garter stitch. I couldn't find a garter stitch pattern that captured the full vibe of her sweater. So I found 2 patterns. The first one is the Fila Jumper by Jane Ellison. This is an all-over garter stitch turtleneck, and it looks like you can work it as a scoop neck as well. There's one pattern on Ravelry, but it looks like a really cute sweater. I don't feel like, because it is, let's see, it's an Aran weight, I don't feel like it captures the stiffness and the sheer volume of sweater that Jan is wearing, but it is this gorgeous all over garter stitch turtleneck, which there like aren't that many of in terms of patterns out there. So this looks like a really fun pattern, a really cool pattern to make. Great when you're knitting flat. So weird to knit garter stitch in the round, but overall captures the vibe pretty well. And when I saw Jan's sweater, before I realized it was garter, I was like, that is the Winter's Pullover by Ozetta. An absolutely massive turtleneck. Absolutely massive. This is Aran weight, and the pattern recommends not 1, but 2 Eastex yarns, which are such stiff, sheepy yarns to create this bulky, warm, giant sweater. Again, another sweater that has been in my favorites for a while. This is just, I mean, this is a sweater. This is a thick sweater. How many times can I say thick, bulky sweater with this? This is just how you describe it. I feel like this is more so what Jan is wearing, and if you wanted to make a garter stitch to really capture the vibe of what Jan is wearing, you could do so. I absolutely love this sweater, and I feel like it's definitely really similar to what Jan is wearing when she is recovering after stabbing herself to throw suspicion off. Great sweater, though. Great sweater. See, Jan's a little crazy, but she's got great sweaters. And then another character, a character that we haven't talked about yet, Howard. Everyone's favorite. I love Howard. At the at the apartment meeting when they vote to evict our favorite trio from all of their apartments. And Howard reveals that his sweet cat Evelyn was poisoned. He's wearing a sick sweater. He's wearing this really cool all over cabled sweater, but it's not a complex all over cabled sweater. You know, sometimes you see all over cables and you look and you're like, what's going on? It's like so many cables that it's just like blinding. It's a very simple all over cabled sweater. And there is a pattern that is literally exactly like this online. I have great news for you if you want to make it. This is the Front Porch Sweater by Kevin Haggerty. This is drop shoulder, all over cables with some stockinette rows knit in between each cable. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous sweater, gorgeous classic sweater, DK weight, definitely what Howard is wearing, definitely very similar to what Howard is wearing. And you can see in his picture he has a ton of cat hair all over it. Poor Howard. But definitely very similar. You know, if you wanted to give it more of a cat hair look, you could knit it with a strand of mohair and be really more like Howard. But overall, this is a great fall sweater. Only a couple sweaters left, so sad. At the same eviction meeting where they all get evicted, Mabel is wearing another sick sweater, another iconic sweater. This one is really cool because if you see in the picture, the sleeves are different than the body, which I absolutely love. I think it's so cool. And there's a ton of like color work sweaters, but this would just be easy to do. You just buy 2 different color yarns and just knit the sleeves different color. This looks pretty similar to the Cove Sweater. However, I think it has a little bit more positive ease, a little bit thicker. The fiber, it looks a little bit bulkier too. It reminded me of the Nukunuku Sweater by Noriko Ichikawa. Gorgeous, oversized, bulky sweater. Drop shoulder, so you could very easily make the sleeves a different color to match Mabel. Pretty oversized, and it's a DK weight, so it's a little thick, not too thick. Yeah, gorgeous sweater pattern. Nukunuku means warm and cozy in Japanese, so perfect sweater. Episode 10, the season finale. Unfortunately, sadly enough, there was not a ton of knitwear in this episode. Mabel is wearing a sweater, a pretty unique sweater. She's wearing a sweater for most of the episode, the whole like chase scene, the basement scene, all of that. This really cool sweater that there's really not a ton of. I couldn't find anything quite like it for 2 reasons. One, it has this really cool kind of scalloped neckline. And then 2, if you look closely, the back of the sweater has got this like corset thing. There's like corset holes and then a ribbon running through it. And I don't really know a ton of like sweater designs that are like that. And I was trying to search and find, and I couldn't find anything. If you know something, let me know. And then there aren't a ton of scalloped sweater patterns out there. I was able to find some things. Okay, here we are. The first is a dress, but could be modified for a sweater. It is the Seaside scallop dress, again by Knititude. It has the really cool scalloped neckline that Mabel's sweater is. It was truly the only thing I could find that was a scalloped neckline, which is so cool. Yeah, no corset. Sorry, no little corset detail on the back. Hard to find. This is an Aran Weight project. It's a really cute dress pattern too. Very professional looking. Like could wear to work. And then the little scallop shoulder, the scalloped neckline is super cool. It's a little bit more kind of off the shoulder than what Mabel's wearing, but beggars can't be choosers. This is the one I could find. And then another pattern that I found is the Tulip Sweater by Melody Hoffman. This has a scalloped hem, which is pretty cool. Not a scalloped neckline, but a scalloped hem. I thought it captured the same vibe as Mabel's, even though Mabel's is a neckline. If you wanted to combine these 2 patterns, you could have a scalloped neck and a scalloped hem. Pretty cool. This pattern is lace held together to make sport. One of the pattern photos has someone wearing it underneath a lace top, and you have the scallop at the bottom and then the lace is peeking out underneath. So pretty. This is a gorgeous pattern. Again, not really what Mabel's wearing at all, but pretty similar, captures the same vibe. So So we're gonna call it a day on that one. So that is it. I have no idea how many patterns we went through. I didn't count, but I had so much fun making this. I had so much fun going through and finding all the patterns. I had fun recording it. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you would like to see knitwear review for the other seasons, because actually I'll probably still do it anyways because I had so much fun making it. I hope you were able to discover some new patterns. I was able to discover some new patterns and new designers, which was really interesting. A couple of patterns that I really liked that are now in my favorites, a couple that are just interesting to see. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time. Happy knitting!